basically we're going to go ahead and build out a financial data warehouse here in a few minutes, kind of walk through the details of that, and we'll populate the data pulling from our source system, which happens to be a JD Edwards 9 standalone, feeding all the fact and dimension tables here. And then we'll talk about, pull up again the semantic layer again just to show, that the semantic layer on top of the transaction or the data warehouse data. And then we'll go and come back to the final slides and then open up for questions. So I just opened up, we're happy to pull, this demo is going to be in SQL Server. Obviously as a JD Edwards customer, you're going to have data that's either in your transactional system being either DB2, SQL Server, or Oracle. And so either of those formats are supported. We're just going to kind of show you an example here, pulling from SQL to SQL, but the same thing would apply pulling from pretty much any of those three database types to those same database types as the data warehouse format as well. So what we're going to deal with up here, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to create, and I'll just go ahead and rerun this to drop and recreate this database. This is this PSBIQL data warehouse will be our target data warehouse, and the source will be down here in this JD Edwards JD data. Okay, so if I go ahead into this, the first shell, I'm just going to go ahead and just create the repository database. I'm going to start that. Okay, so now that step's been completed. Let's go back and open up our SQL Server database. We'll populate this, and then we'll come back and explain some of the different things and the different structure of the data warehouse, and then we'll kind of even pull up some of the different, we refer to as full loads or incremental loads, and explain that as well. So I go here to the database and go here to this one, and go to my tables and views. So there's nothing in there, right? So if you have nothing in this repository as of yet. So next up here, we're going to go ahead and run another script. It's going to create, in essence, my objects that are going to be utilized. So this would be kind of just the shell of the different fact and dimension tables and staging tables and things like that. So it's just going to create the structure but not populate with any data at this point. So if I click back on the next one and go ahead and start there. So now if we go back over to the database, we can go, and if we do a refresh here, and go back here, so now we've actually got the different data here. If we go ahead and pull up one of these, for instance, I'll pull like an org dimension here, which is kind of like the business unit master as its structure. So you'll notice here we've got the different fields and the columns here. We are using, from a data warehousing perspective, surrogate keys, so each of these dimension tables has surrogate keys integrated in there. As you scroll across here, we'll see the business unit description. We get down to the right, you'll see category codes, different dates. We call for these, for the business unit, kind of org segment. These could be named whatever you want. That's one of the flexibilities that we deliver, is the ability to change some of the descriptions that you want for your dimension fields. But typically each of these user-defined code values in JD Edwards has different logic, and it's actually now feeding one true dimension that has all of those category codes and any other objects that make sense to fall in line with that specific dimension would be there as well. So let's go ahead and populate this with data, and we'll come back and look at it. We'll go back here to the final step. So what this is going to do when I kick off this step, let me go ahead and generate that. And let me see, yeah, it actually is going. So what this is doing is it's actually running a specific job. So you can see here we've got some different fact tables. For this example, we're doing a general ledger data warehouse. We've got some different dimension tables like the count dimension, hierarchy for level of detail, asset, master, company, currency, some different document types, period, and time dimensions that will be tied in depending upon if you're going against like a detail fact table or a summary fact table. And we've got some other for subledgers and things like that. So we're doing a lot of, so what's happening right now while this is running, let me go down here to our job that I just triggered here. If I go here and look at the history. So this is running, there's actually 12 steps. I think it takes about 2.5 minutes for it to complete the full build of that entire data warehouse. So that's in essence going across, the whole general accounting, build for the 911, your account balance file, your general ledger, and then all the dimension tables that would be tied into that. The address book and the asset and accounts and business units. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh that. Once we get to 12 here, we'll be done. So it's been completed now. So now if we go back to any of these different factor dimension tables, we can go ahead and see the data there. So I'm going to go back to that same one we were just at. If we go ahead and select like the first top 1,000 rows. So now we can see this with data. And what's happening here is we've got actually the surrogate key is kind of more of a, what we've modeled our data warehousing around is the Ralph Kimball, the data warehouse toolkit from Microsoft. So that's kind of the model. So if there's any questions about that, I'm happy to get some other technical resources on the line from our perspective. But here we've got so the surrogate key, then the business unit. We're doing some things as well. Here's the native value with leading spaces. Here's where they're trimmed. So in the data warehouse build, you're not only just kind of modeling the data, but you're also doing some cleansing and cleaning of the data as well to make sure that it's it's looking good so people can query the data and it makes sense. If we scroll to the right, again, all your dates and decimals are things that would be accounted for in the data warehouse build. So if you're going directly against transactional data and you're not doing some type of database view where you're handling some of those things, it would have to be done either in like the semantic layer. But here with the data warehouse, you can actually have, again, sort of pushing some of that back to the data warehouse makes sense. And here we get each of the different business unit category codes and the associated description there with it. Right? So this is kind of where it's nice because when we get to the universe, we can kind of explain the difference of these dimension tables versus a dimension or the tables that would be pulled in under a direct approach. So if I go to any of these, again, they're all full of data. Here's like, for instance, the address dimension, same kind of thing. So let's take, this is the, here's the, okay, so if I click here, this is the full load. So when you're actually going through the process of each of those, and what you'll do is you'll actually have, with the ETL tool, build out the logic to populate all these data warehouse factor dimension tables. And then there'll be maybe some slightly different variations of those depending on what type of load. So when we talk about full load, again, that's the same. There's actually nothing in our target. Everything's in our source. So the full load will go through, and if you're doing a full load, we're starting here with like a truncate, then it does the full load process. And in this case, we're doing this on the business unit master or org dimension. You go and populate the category codes and then enter a blank row. And the data flow here. So you can kind of see it's actually going in and calculating what the surrogate key is going to be, goes in, pulls in all the details it needs, creates everything, and then it's going to spit it out on the other side. Okay, so that's kind of a full load. It's because you're starting by making sure that you have, in essence, an empty data set in the target. It goes through that process. Whereas a change data capture load or an incremental is where you're actually going to go through determine what the max surrogate key is, because as you add new records to it, then that needs to basically take the next specific value that's on the list. So it's really a surrogate key. It's going to be starts out. It's like a next number in JD Edwards kind of thing. So what the difference of a change data capture is, it's not just grabbing new records that have been added, because if you think about it, within the JD Edwards environment, you've got new records, you've got changed records, and potentially you have deleted records. So all of that needs to be analyzed within the ETL and say, okay, am I a new record that's being added? If so, do I have an existing surrogate key? Or so new records wouldn't, so you'd actually have to populate that with the next value for that. If it's a change record, you have to identify which of the record it was, and then update the record in the system with a change, the new updated value. And so again, here's where the similar process goes through under a change data capture load. You're going through the process, doing everything you need to, and then it's going to go in and find the match. New records go one path, change records, and update records. So then it comes back. When you're doing this, some ETL tools have some auditing features already, so you can kind of see what the audit is. Other times you can build auditing into the process as well. So that's kind of just in a nutshell the difference. The only other piece that we'll talk about a little bit more when we get back to the PowerPoint slides is the near real-time data warehousing and how that kind of changes the approach.